Hello everyone and welcome to day 4 of the Payday 3 news stream breakdown videos where I take the daily dev streams that Almir is doing with different people in the Starbreeze team and give you the most important parts that they discuss during that stream, which Almir actually mentioned on stream today that I've been doing these videos, so thank you to him for that, and anyone who's come over from there. Welcome to the channel. If you enjoy it, please do make sure you click the like button and hit the subscribe button if you are new. We're gaining a lot of subscribers from these videos, and I want to see just how far we can push it. And I've not really been doing much shouting out for my wider community, but the people on Twitch have been finding this out. If you want to join my Discord server, you can do that via the link in the description to keep in touch with me and my community. Discord.gg/RedArcherLive, you can use that as well. And if you want to support me beyond watching the videos, like and subscribing, I also have a Patreon. There aren't really many perks on there at the minute. It's more just if you want to support me. I am looking at trying to add more things down the line, but I haven't mentioned it in centuries, so I thought I'd mention that as well. You can check out the link in the description if you care. But let's get into the important stuff, which is the stream's news for today. And this time, I've got more notes than I did yesterday. I really thought we were going to get to the point where we were going to start running out of things to say, but they keep sharing either additions to things they've said before, or just all over new information. And I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. So less waffle and more reading, I hear you say. Let's do it. So today it was Almir and Mio again, Mio being someone who's worked across a few different versions of Payday 3, whether it being the loud gunplay, the enemies, some bits of stealth progression. He's got kind of a broad view of a lot of the aspects, even if he's not working on all of them at this present point in time. Almir notes it's been now 1 week since the game's full global launch, and they've been doing their best to fix the server issues, but it seems as though since the upgrade on Tuesday, as I said yesterday, and it's continued to be the case, things have begun to stabilise, and there's been no full outage for 48 hours, and there is still one more maintenance period tomorrow morning, which, as a reminder, is between 7 and 10 AM BST, UK time. You can change the zone from there if you want, but that's going to happen tomorrow, and hopefully that'll mean things will be even better for the weekend. But if it carries on like the last 2 days, things are much, much better, which is good. I've not had any real major problem in the last 2 days of streams, which I'll be live again tonight. It's shortly after this video, twitch.tv/RedArcherLive. Feel free to come hang out. But C-Stacks then were the next port of call. They noted that C-Stacks are not a premium currency. Mio made a point of this because apparently he's been seeing a lot of people asking him, probably because, as we know, microtransactions are coming in the form of Payday credits, but C-Stacks will not become a premium currency. You won't be able to buy them with any real-life money, nor will you be able to buy any C-Stack boosters, for example, like you can with Renome boosters in Rainbow Six Siege. I'm fairly sure you can buy those with real money. If not, that's a system that exists regardless, so something like that won't come over with real money purchases in Payday 3. On top of that, they talked about security modifiers. There's a few mentions of that throughout this stream, but the first point they said was that more security modifiers are coming, and they will try and design them to counter specific strategies people have been using on particular maps. He didn't give any examples of this, much like with the challenge suggestion we'll get to in a minute. They're not teasing you of what kind of ideas they've got unless they're concrete, and they haven't got anything concrete yet. But they're also saying that at some point, they could add skills that could counter these new modifiers, and on the other side of the coin, there may already be skills that can combat modifiers existing, or they'll add some modifiers down the line that can combat skills already in the game that are making life really easy for stealth players. So it's going to be a bit of a give and take, a bit of a balancing act between the skills that make you powerful and the modifiers that help combat them, which does sound quite interesting. It kind of maintains the challenge and brings you new things to not make it much harder, but still give you a challenge regardless of how much you played at Payday 3, which I think is a nice idea. Again, they mentioned that no classic heists are confirmed, and Almir said, and I quote, "It's possible and up to the post-launch development team, but sounds like an interesting concept." Do I need to say anything? It's fairly likely they're coming, let's be real here. They then also note that achievement fixes, so them not popping up for certain achievements, should hopefully be covered in October 5th's patch. If you haven't seen any of the previous videos, there are 2 updates coming to Payday 3 next month. One on October 5th, which is 200 plus bug fixes, some of which I described in yesterday's video, so feel free to go watch that. There's a list of some of the things Andreas mentioned. But on top of that, there'll be an update at the end of October, date to be confirmed, which is more quality of life fixes. We'll see what that is. They haven't gone into too much detail. They've looked at some things that they're possibly going to be trying to do, but nothing is set in stone just yet. After that, they said they're not actively working on akimbo weapons at this moment, but like melee weapons that Mio mentioned on Tuesday, they'll be considered if there's demand for it. So if you want akimbo weapons, tell them. Mio then re-clarified that more difficulties doesn't necessarily mean plural, and this was the first hint that I think they've been watching my breakdown videos, because I talked about this at length when he mentioned this. He noted that that was just the way he speaks. He said that there could be more difficulties down the line, but he wants to stress that he didn't necessarily mean plural. It could just be one difficulty, not necessarily 2, 3, 4, which, by the way, good. As I said in that video, I don't think that Payday 3 would benefit from having difficulties coming out the wazoo like Payday 2 did. I think the amount of difficulties right now is good, and in my opinion, if you add one more, fine, bit more challenge, but you go beyond that and you end up having what you did in Payday 2, which Almir said, where there's so many difficulties, you pick one and just stick with it. And I don't think they want you to do that in Payday 3. It's very important. So I think reducing the number of difficulties helps allow people to kind of bounce between the different ones. They also noted that whatever difficulty they do add down the line will not just be about increasing numbers, as higher numbers will force people to play specific builds, and we don't want that. Cool. Mio then reminded everyone that they're still looking at challenge layouts, etc., but can't comment on a timeline, so improving the organization, etc. Hopefully this is stuff we get in the late October update, but we'll just see whether that comes, how it happens. But again, they don't want to comment on some of their ideas for changes to the system, because they don't want to get people's hopes up if they promise something cool that they can't deliver on, and also get people angry too soon if they say something people don't like, because it might not be in the update anyway. So they're trying to basically discuss ideas and then put things out later down the line. Almir mentions offline mode again, but much like yesterday, said it's not in development. They haven't confirmed what they will do as of now. It's just on the table, which is actually coming to be a bit of a detriment to them in these streams. I'll mention a point later. I don't think reading some of these things out and saying we haven't confirmed is going to help long term if they're not going to change their answer, and there's one in particular, but we will get there. The safe house has reiterated it's a possibility in the future, so that's been and gone. Mio has seen very mixed feedback though on weapons, said that analysing the stats and weapon designers will look at addressing the balancing, but they need to look more in depth first, as the game again has only been out fully for a week, to decide which guns need buffing, nerfing, tweaking, that kind of thing. So those fixes will come, but they want to make sure they fully analyse the situation before they just do knee-jerk reactions. Fair enough. Talking about XP for kills or revives, Mio says that they're working on updating infamy progression, but notes that there are already challenges designed for that, so getting just XP for every kill or revive is not really something that they're considering. He said it's already essentially in there through the challenges, but they'll have more information on challenges in the progression system in the future. Almir then references some quality of life features in Payday 2 that were added post-launch, and he included things like Team AI, customization, weapon expansion, that kind of thing, and he's making a point which honestly is quite valid. He's been saying to a few things recently, he's going, the suggestions that you guys are making for a lot of these features were not in Payday 2 when it first came out. They were added after the fact. So it doesn't make sense for everything Payday 2 had over its 10 years quality of life wise to be in Payday 3 right off the gate. I do understand that, but I do think that there are some things that just because they weren't added in Payday 2 at launch doesn't mean they shouldn't have been in Payday 3 at launch either. And things like being able to inspect your weapon, I don't feel like that's something super difficult to do, so I think there are some things that we're just missing that shouldn't have been. But really, is being able to inspect your weapon that deep? Probably not, so it getting added later, I'm not too bothered. As long as it gets added, I'll be happy. He also mentioned a few characters today, one of which being John Wick. Also mentioned So-Called, a few other people. Again, unaccounted for. But I just thought it was funny him saying John Wick was unaccounted for, because if you've seen John Wick 4, I don't know how well they want to tie it to the movies, but you may have a problem. Anyway, not a great option also right now for the Silver to Gold edition. That's not currently available on all platforms. Now, I wanted to expand a bit on this because I mentioned it on stream. On Xbox, you can upgrade between versions. That is possible, mainly because of, I think, the Game Pass version's existence. So you can own the base game via Game Pass. If you want to upgrade, you have to buy the special silver or gold upgrades. So on Xbox you can. I don't believe on any other platform you can right now, but I'm hoping that will get added down the line. So Almir said they'll keep us posted. If Xbox have got it, hopefully Sony, Steam and Epic can get it too. But we'll see. After that, he said there's no VR option confirmed for Payday 3, and again reinforced it's another thing that was added later in Payday 2. Said it took about a year's worth of development, so it's something they can't really do right this second, but it might come down the line, so we'll see. But the first big interesting thing for Payday 3 in this stream today was talking about progression, because Mio pointed out a few strategies people have been using and his thoughts on them. So that'll be interesting to read out this section of notes I took down. In Payday 3, the higher your level, the more options you have. That's the idea of progression. It's not about power scaling like it was in Payday 2, where you get better guns, better skills, and then can take on higher difficulties. It's more about giving you more things on offer, like different guns to use and that kind of thing. It's not a vertical thing. He describes it more as a horizontal progression system. He sees that players are trying to rush the levels and farm kills for challenges, and he said, quote, "We didn't think people would resort to that as it's not optimal." And then he mentioned specifically the touch the sky bathroom strategy, which if you haven't seen it, there are videos already out on the internet about it, about how to exploit your level. It's just not what I'm interested in. I know it's not the case for everyone, and I'm not for a second saying you shouldn't do it if that's the way you want to play the game, because you're more than valid however you want to play. But Mio did mention, and I just thought it was quite funny, him saying that strategy is not enjoyable, it's not what we want, but it's what people are going for. So he wants to try and ensure people don't keep farming, but I feel like no matter what you do in this game, if people want to farm for levels and XP and cash, they're going to do it. They're going to find a way. So I don't think that's really something you can fully prevent. It seems a bit more like a fool's errand. I get it, and I know different people have got different opinions. Like I said, I'm on the case of not wanting to farm things. Other people are. And if you are, that's perfectly fine. You want to get to a high level? Cool, fair enough. But I don't think, for me personally, that's something that should be really worried about too much, because, you know, like people say, life finds a way. Well, Payday players find a way. Moving on from that, Almir said a Halloween event isn't confirmed, but considering his little winky face behaviour earlier in the week, and also the fact that the second patch is happening at the end of October with quality of life changes, it's not impossible, let's be real. Almir then read out Jacket in the stream for only one time, I'm pretty sure, but I just found it funny that he mentioned that it was the first Jacket mention of the stream, which, I mean, I know he's seen the videos because he's already shouted them out, and I think he's seen my tweets already saying about how many times he mentions jackets, so I think at this point, bro, he's just embracing the meme, and I respect it. Moving on from that, though, Mio talked about some enemies that have not been added back in Payday 3, and there are a few mentions further down the line, so I'm going to combine these, maybe skip over the points later. People are asking about SWAT turrets, martial snipers, shields, and particularly the medic. Mio has said they weren't confident that these enemies would fit in Payday 3. He talked about the medic specifically because he said the ammo economy is stricter in this game, so you want to be picking up the ammo for every kill you get in Payday 3, and if you've got a medic present, then when you're shooting someone and trying to kill them and they get healed, you're not getting ammo back for the kill you're putting in, so the ammo economy is then tilted even further against you and makes the game too difficult. So for now, a medic's not coming back, but if they can find a way to add it later, they will look at doing so. Same with any enemies that are not currently in Payday 3, they've tried to make as many work as possible, but they're not going to shove them in for the sake of it. So whether it be a new enemy or a returning one, they'll make sure they work with the system before they add them, which is the best you can ask. On top of that, Almir said Twitch drops are coming soon, and then Mio points out that LMGs are wanted, but he says that could be added as an overkill weapon rather than a primary. He's not currently on the weapons team, so he can't officially comment, but he said that they will probably be back in the future, which makes sense. I honestly think LMGs may serve better as an overkill weapon, but it doesn't have to be limited to that. You've got a sniper that's an overkill weapon, but you also have primary snipers. So it depends on what gun you add, how it's played, and whether it's too overpowered to just have as a primary, or if you can make the stats more acceptable that you can just use as a standard weapon as opposed to overkill. Depends on how they lay it out, so it could be very interesting either way. I think personally for overkill weapons, special things should be the focus. I mean, an LMG that's an overkill weapon sounds cool, but I'd love to see a minigun, flamethrower, things like that that actually feel like proper overkill weapons. Almir also says that they will talk about the frequency of content updates later down the line, so we'll know more about how often updates will be when we get further along, and you can also pick up trends once they start updating the game. You can start to see how often they do it and figure it out naturally from there. But moving on from that, Mio talks then about stealth modifiers again and loud modifiers in particular. And again, like I said, there are some points that pop up several times here, so I may skip over things that are irrelevant because some things get mentioned at several points in the stream where you could bring them together to make a better point. And he talked about why stealth modifiers are shoved in your face, whereas loud modifiers are not. With loud modifiers, that's basically just playing on different difficulties will make the game harder, whether it be the accuracy that enemies have, the damage that they deal, the amount of enemies that spawn and how they move around more in packs, more strategically. That's the loud modifiers. The higher difficulty you play, the harder the enemies are to deal with. That is more of a natural gameplay mechanic as opposed to stealth where you've got up a difficulty, now you can't destroy cameras. You've gone up a difficulty, now there's a guard whose pager will go off instantly. They're more in-your-face changes, whereas the loud ones are more gradual, so they're making you aware of the stealth ones and not so much of the loud, and he thinks that's the best way for the system to work. Obviously, they could change it, but they want to make sure that you have the full experience on each difficulty with loud, and that's why there's all the enemies on every difficulty as well. It's more just how they behave, rather than at this difficulty, a cloaker shows up, at this one, a dozer. And honestly, for me, I think that works really well. I really like it. At one point, Almir was then asked about narcotics, and that sounds weird out of context, but he means in the case of heists, because people were saying that, or one person in particular was saying there didn't seem to be as much drug-based loot in Payday 3. The quote that I wanted to pull out was he said, "Maybe we will see heists in the future, including ingredients and so on." Anyone else thinking about meth at this point? And I'm not talking to you like you're Walter White, but it does suggest that Cook-Off could be coming down the line. And he later then was asked about Cook-Off specifically as an endless heist, and he said, "It's a great idea, but hasn't been confirmed." He loves sitting on the fence of these things, but sometimes with the way he says it, it sounds like it's more likely, so maybe we'll get some kind of cook-off, even if it's not an endless heist, who knows. Mio then also points out, sticking with overkill weapons that I mentioned earlier, that he's aware personally that some of the overkill weapon spawns are not good, but that people do need to let them know if they want better spawns. I mean, personally, if he already knows they're a problem, I'd hope that he'd have brought that up and they'd be looking at it, but maybe it's not so simple, so I don't want to assume. Point being, I think we do need to let them know, because I personally have had this issue happen where there are just not enough overkill weapon spawns on certain maps, and I'm also not convinced that on the maps where there are several spawns, that they always land near to where you call them. So for instance, on the Golden Shark Bank, you can get them to drop on the outside of the bank, on the ground floor, or on the roof. But I'm not convinced that it's really that well balanced as to where you call it in as to where it spawns in or where you're up to in the heist. It'd be really cool if towards the end of the heist, the overkill weapons always spawn on the roof because they know you're going to be up there, whereas in the early days it spawns on the floor. If that's how it works, maybe that's the case, but it just doesn't seem super clear to me. So more spawns and more consistency with where you calling them in compared to where they drop would be really, really cool, at least for me personally. But again, always comment sections are just as important in these videos. Share your thoughts on everything so they can read through. And now we know Almir's seeing them, the studio is seeing them, the comments really do matter, so leave your thoughts below. On top of that, Almir reinforces the one community with consoles, because people are saying, you know, what happens if consoles get left behind? behind. And again, he's reinforced, any update we will go live with, we want everyone to have it at the same time. We were unable to do that with Payday 2, but with Payday 3, we are doing that. They then also say that OS X support is not currently confirmed. Again, we haven't confirmed this, blah, 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 blah. So we've already seen that next point. Renaming loadout should be a future quality of life update, says Mio, because it was already in Payday 2. Yes. I mean, realistically, it should have been in the game at launch. That's one of those things that I feel like just because it was not in Payday 2 at base doesn't mean it shouldn't have been in Payday 3. It really should have been realistically, but I'm assuming that will get added very, very soon. Mio then also acknowledges that they don't tell you what you unlock every time you level up, be it guns, suits, when you get a new skill point, that kind of thing. And Mio says it's not great, and it will be a quality of life change that they do keep in mind for the future. I personally think the worst offender of this is, as he said, the skill points. Sometimes I'll just be browsing my inventory and suddenly go, oh, I've unlocked a new skill point, let's use it. It doesn't feel like a very interactive system, so being more in your face shown about it when you level up would be more useful, I think, personally. All right, now it's for the big one. This is the thing that will probably be the title and is the thing that matters the most to me. As I said, sometimes Almir saying we haven't confirmed something will serve to the game's detriment if he picks the wrong questions, and I think he really did here. He said that a battle pass system is not confirmed and they'll touch more on the post-launch campaign as they go along. So I need to specify this because I've done this once before because some people do not know the difference. Season passes and battle passes are two very different things. Season passes contain a set amount of DLC, you buy it for the pass at a cheaper price, and it contains all the DLC as it releases. Much like what Payday 2 did when you bought certain chapters. If you bought the Hostile Takeover bundle in Texas Heat, you got each of the 3 or 4 DLCs included in that bundle, and overall it was cheaper. A battle pass is something you pay for separately, will have a certain amount of tiers that you gain by XP or whatever it may be, beating challenges, probably for Payday 3's sake if they do it, and it's only available for a limited time. And if you don't beat the battle pass in that limited amount of time, that stuff is gone unless the pass is brought back. It's fear of missing out, or FOMO as it's called. They're two very, very different things, and battle passes in most games are completely loathed and often very, very, very unnecessary. And if they're going to have microtransactions that are going to be cosmetic only, don't also start doing battle passes. I don't personally believe in my heart of hearts that's something they're thinking of, but I think in this case, sometimes, this is just a friendly bit of advice for me personally, without sounding like a narky bugger. I think sometimes either if you can't say something isn't happening, don't read the question out, or if there's something like this that probably isn't going to happen, please say it. You could always say this may change down the line, like Mio said with some of the enemy changes, but leaving it so on the fence like that when people are already, like me, worried about microtransactions, that is not good. My Discord server imploded when he said that, and I was just like, so, fingers crossed, when reading too much into this, and it probably isn't going to happen, but I need to make it clear, because that is what he said. It's not confirmed, and they'll touch more on stuff like that as they go along. Fingers crossed, people, that they do not do that, because we will have a problem. But either way, let's move on from there. Mio then notes some skills will impact some weapons differently, because some people were saying, oh, we get better hip fire accuracy. What does this mean? What's the percentage? And he said it's actually different between guns. So if you get a skill that improves your hip fire accuracy, the reason it doesn't tell you how much buy or show you any stat changes in game is because different guns will have different boosts applied to them. So for instance, if it was 20% across all guns, for some guns it'd make them unbelievably cracked, whereas for others it wouldn't make nearly as much of a difference. So they're adjusting it based on the weapons that they think need more boosts or need less boosts when you get the skill, and will work from there. If it was the same amount across all guns, he said, quote, it would be impossible to balance. So that's a bit of a background information explanation for you there. Almir then says more news on an actual content update with a heist or something like that will be coming, quote, soon enough. And then there's a few more interesting points to make towards the end here. Mio was talking about full damage making you mask up in stealth and also not being able to jump in casing mode. Two very hot topics right now for the stealth community. Mio said that they experimented with a lot of different things in development, and those two things were two things in particular which broke the game from a balancing perspective, even if it didn't make real world sense. They're saying that while they want the game to feel realistic, it's a Hollywood realism, so it allows them some flexibility if things don't work out in game the way they would in real life. So for instance, you'd be able to jump up onto objects when you're in casing mode, in inverted commas, in real life if you're robbing something, which you wouldn't be, right, people? But the point is, in game, it doesn't work the exact same way. And honestly, I can see with the jumping one in particular, because you'd be able to do just too much stuff without your mask on. You can do enough demasked as it is. I don't think you need to add more features to make it even easier. Full damage when you're masking up, I will admit, I don't like that one as much. I can understand him saying balancing-wise it didn't make sense. That would be one I'd consider maybe looking at a little bit more, just because, I don't know. Oh, I've took damage. Let me put my mask on. Even for the sake of for a game mechanic, it still feels a bit goofy, but if it doesn't get changed, it really isn't that deep. I just think that one in particular, I'd maybe consider revisiting. But here's the last section of bits to talk about. Almir acknowledges a shooting range to test weapons would be cool, but there's no confirmation of it so far, much like a safe house, because those two kind of go hand in hand. Mio was then asked why flashbangs and smoke grenades don't work on dozers, and he clarified by saying, well, flashbangs don't work, much like basic grenades don't, because the dozer will just taunt you with voice lines to say it, but smoke grenades actually do. They will affect the dozer's as accuracy, so you can use smoke grenades against them. Almir then talks about the ratio of free to paid DLC and how it hasn't been discussed, and he said, well, that's because we haven't decided it internally yet. They haven't fully decided what percentage of updates will be free and what percentage will be DLC, but he knows it's important to have a good ratio, and they'll hope to keep that consistent like they did with Payday 2, at least in the pre-Revival era where there was a good balance of free and paid. Obviously, Revival era was pretty much all DLC, and that was because they were trying to make money. Let's be real, that was all it was, let's face it. Also, additional graphic settings like bloom, etc. could be added later for the PC folks. I don't presume that would also apply to console, but who knows. I'm going to skip that middle point because I want to look at that in more detail for the end. Non-pistol secondaries could be added later down the line, but there's no comment on when. There's just a likelihood, Mio said. Secret overdrill masks in Payday 3, not as of now, says Almir, which again plays into classic heists coming back. I want First World Bank back. It makes sense from a lore standpoint. It's the original heist from the web series. It was in Payday 1 and 2. You got overdrill. That one needs to come back, just my opinion. And also vehicle-based heists could come post-launch as well. In Unreal Engine, driving might not actually suck ass now. That'd be nice. And he finishes off by saying we are working on more heists. That was pretty much the last thing he said in this stream, which kind of felt appropriate. But to finish off, let's talk about C-stacks, because this is my last part of debate today, and one I really want your thoughts on in the comment section below. Because Mio was talking a bit about the C-stack drop rates, and he's talking about how some players right now are more dedicated at playing than others. And the ones who are more dedicated to trying to get as many C-stacks as possible, but even then noticing they've not got enough to get a lot of what they want week by week. Now, you can get C-stacks right now by reaching certain infamy levels for challenges, and mainly you get them through the C-stack vendor, and every week there's only a certain amount you can buy. I can't remember what the actual amount is, but somebody worked it out. I think it's less than 200 regardless. But the point is, he was saying that right now it may seem like it's a brutal system, but as more time passes, he thinks people will have less problems accruing C-stacks because you'll have more money from playing more heists, and each week you'll be able to buy more C-stacks with that money. I do understand that, and I think at some point you will get there, but I think right now, personally, either the drop rate should be improved or the cost of something should be reduced. One pair of gloves I have noticed is 300 C-stacks. If you can't buy a cosmetic item from purchasing every C-stack option in the vendor shop in 1 week, I don't think that's being done well. Personally, if you're trying to save up for an item and you can't get it from a whole week's worth of C-stack purchases, that may be a bit too much. So I really think that that should be reconsidered. That's my opinion. But as always, I want your comments on it down below. But that sums up day 4. Like I said, there was a lot more today I feel like to talk about, a more wider range of points, but in particular, that battle pass thing. We really could be reading too much into it, and I really acknowledge that. But the problem is when you sit on the fence on nearly every question, which I do get, by the way, I get why he does that, because they don't want to confirm something that they have to go back on, or say something people don't like, they later don't do anyway. It makes sense. But I think if you're going to be on the fence about everything, for battle passes in particular, that's going to fire people up. And even as me, someone who is a known Fortnite enjoyer and doesn't mind the battle pass system in that game, I don't want to see it in many other games. It works within Fortnite, but too many games tried to copy it, and I think in most of them, it failed. I don't want Payday 3 to be one of those, so please, do not do that. Please. But ladies and gentlemen, I will no doubt see you all tomorrow now for day 5 of these updates. We'll finish off the week with some more information from Almir. I don't believe he confirmed who's going to be on the stream, but either way, we'll see who it will be tomorrow. So we'll see if they've got any more information to share in the next video in roughly 24 hours time. So thank you all very much for watching. As always, if you've enjoyed, please click the like button, as I've said, and hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all future news for Payday 3. See you either on Twitch tonight for my live stream, as always, Payday 3, or tomorrow for day 5 of the news breakdowns. Whatever it is, I'll see you all very soon. Much love, thanks for watching, and take it easy.